Americans, listen up and listen closely. The separation of church and state given to the United States of America is a gift from the Creator. The United States of America is the last place where you can still be a human being. Because when you unify church and state, then the state can force you to worship whichever God that the state worships. And when you're dealing with kingdoms of this earth, it's always a satanic choice to worship Babylon, forced to worship Rome, the beast. So, United States of America, your separation of church and state is a target by cavemen who worship Satan in caves. Neanderthals, still in the Stone Age, the Dark Ages. They are upon us again. Yes, persecution always follows forced worship when separation of church and state is taken away. That is what you are up against. So, this is your last invitation to be transformed. That's right, to be transformed, to come out of Babylon. The whole world has been deceived by cavemen. Here are the cavemen deceiving the world. Only cavemen worship pagan gods in caves. Anyone worshiping in a cave is worshiping the enemy of the creator of heaven and earth, Satan. It is a satanic system of worship steeped in paganism, and any form of that system of worship that has infiltrated your own belief system or your church or your congregation, any part of anything, and all of Protestantism has come out of the caveman system of Roman Catholicism. And if the Protestant denomination that you belong to has any remnant of anything that it took from Rome when it came out of Rome, you worship in the caveman system as well.
So the only way to make America great again is not primarily with the ballot box. It is for people to get on their knees and pray that God would intervene in this situation, in the way things are unfolding.
God already intervened. He came, he walked this earth. He told you, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar, and to God that which is God's. Then he told you, people are going to come in my name. And he warned you not to fall for the trap of the wolves in sheep's clothing called Christianity. And the wolves in sheep's clothing of cavemen masquerading as children of God. But you fell for it anyway.
Because these nations once respected God, but now they're striving after what's wrong, what's evil, what's sinful.
That's exactly why the whole world has the mark of the beast right now. Because everyone's delusional. He's an evangelical Christian. And he just said, these countries once worshiped God. Okay. When? Let's look at Rome. Has Rome worshiped God? Never. We'll show you.
The Vatican rules over approximately 2 billion of the world's 6.1 billion people. The colossal wealth of the Vatican includes enormous investments with the Rothschilds in Britain, France, and the USA, and with giant oil and weapons corporations like Shell and General Electric. The Vatican solid gold bullion worth billions is stored with the Rothschild-controlled Bank of England and the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank. The Catholic Church is the biggest financial power, wealth accumulator, and property owner in existence, possessing more material wealth than any bank, corporation, giant trust, or government anywhere on the globe. The Pope, who is the visible ruler of this colossal global wealth, is one of the richest men on earth. While 2/3 of the world earns less than $2 a day, and 1/5 of the world is underfed or starving to death, the Vatican hoards the world's wealth, profits from it on the stock market, and at the same time preaches about giving. How did the Pope and Vatican accumulate all that wealth over the millennium? One method was to put a price tag on sin. Many bishops and popes actively marketed guilt, sin, and fear for profit by selling indulgences. Worshippers were encouraged to prepay for sins they hadn't yet committed and get pardoned ahead of time. Those who didn't pay up risked eternal damnation in Satan's oven. Pope Leo X rebuilt St. Peter's Basilica, selling tickets out of hell and tickets to heaven. During the Dark Ages, the Catholic Church not only hoarded the wealth they collected from the poor, but hoarded knowledge. They kept the masses ignorant and in the dark by denying them a basic education. During World War II, the Vatican was criticized for supporting Hitler and his Nazi regime. To this day, the Vatican is still under investigation for plundering Nazi gold from the Swiss bank accounts of Jewish Holocaust victims. Over the past 5 decades, more than 1,500 priests and bishops have been identified in the sexual assault of tens of thousands of boys and girls in their trusting congregations and orphanages. Why is this filthy rich institution preaching spiritual values of poverty and chastity while cardinals, bishops, and priests cover up their crimes of sexual abuse? Why has the Church fought and resisted the compensation claims of their sexually, emotionally, and spiritually traumatized victims?
The reason why is because this institution, which we call Chino, Christ in name only, Chino is the beast and the whore of Revelation. That's why. That's why it's done all of those things, and that's why it's about to repeat all of those things. That was just a test. That was just a warm-up. Before Christ comes again, they're going to repeat it on a worldwide scale, the persecution. All right, so that's Rome down. So now let's talk about Great Britain. My friend who made the clip, he's an evangelical Christian from Great Britain, and he said these countries used to worship God. So now let's look at the crown. Let's look at Great Britain. All right, so all of the popes claim to be God on earth. Jesus Christ on earth, God on earth. We all know that's blasphemy, but that's what those idolatrous blasphemers claim. They are God on earth. All right, so let's look at the Church of England. The Church of England, all right, they have sacraments. They have sacraments come from the Catholic Church. They have archbishops. They have everything that the Catholic Church has, they have. The only thing they did is their king, he wanted to divorce one wife and marry another, and the Pope wouldn't let him. So because England believes that their monarchs are God on earth as well, just like Rome believes and Roman Catholics believe that their Pope is God on earth, because that's what he tells you. The vicar of Christ, that means God on earth. So the Church of England believes the same exact satanic thing. They worship the monarch. It's the same satanic system. That's why the word says Babylon, the great mother of harlots. Great Britain is just the daughter whore of Babylon. So the Christian Church of England is also a satanic wolf in sheep's clothing because it places the monarch, the king or queen of England. It unifies church and state, and it has its people worshiping the monarch, an idol on earth. And they also acknowledge the Pope as Jesus Christ on earth. And they also acknowledge the Roman Catholic idol placing Mary above Christ. All satanic. So, when has these empires worshiped God? They've deceived you. Come out of Babylon right now. Be transformed.
Like Vatican City, London's inner city is also a privately owned corporation or city-state, located right smack in the heart of Greater London. It became a sovereign state in 1694 when King William III of Orange privatized and turned the Bank of England over to the bankers. By 1812, Nathan Rothschild crashed the English stock market and scammed control of the Bank of England. Today, the city-state of London is the world's financial power center and the wealthiest square mile on the face of the earth. It houses the Rothschild-controlled Bank of England, Lloyd's of London, the London Stock Exchange, all British banks, the branch offices of 385 foreign banks, and 70 U.S. banks. It has its own courts, its own laws, its own flag, and its own police force. It's not part of Greater London or England or the British Commonwealth and pays no taxes. The city-state of London houses Fleet Street's newspaper and publishing monopolies. It is also the headquarters for Worldwide English Freemasonry and headquarters for the worldwide money cartel known as the Crown. Contrary to popular belief, the Crown is not the royal family or the British monarch. The Crown is the private corporate city-state of London. It has a council of 12 members who rule the corporation under a mayor called the Lord Mayor. The Lord Mayor and his 12-member council serve as proxies or representatives who sit in for 13 of the world's wealthiest, most powerful banking families. This ring of 13 ruling families includes the Rothschild family, the Warburg family, the Oppenheimer family, and the Schiff family. These families and their descendants run the Crown Corporation of London. The Crown Corporation holds the title to worldwide Crown land in Crown colonies like Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. The British Parliament and the British Prime Minister serve as a public front for the hidden power of these ruling Crown families.
So the Vatican, Great Britain, and Washington, D.C. are known as the Unholy Empire. You also have to include Paris, France in there as well, too. So let's look at the third member of this unholy empire, the United States of America. Yes, it was created by the Creator to have separation of church and state, meaning religious liberty. Because when you have separation of church and state, the statement made by the master, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar and to God that which is God's. When you have separation of church and state, even if you give Caesar what Caesar requires, which is taxes and all of the laws of the land, Caesar's laws never ever surpass and supersede the Creator's laws. So you still can give the Creator the worship he requires when you have separation of church and state. Caesar gets a honest, productive citizen, and God gets a child of God that keeps his commandments no matter what Caesar says, no matter what the Vatican and paganism say they can change God's laws. God's children, when you have separation of church and state, prevents you from having to be a caveman. You can be a human being that worships your Creator and still enters into the covenant, the everlasting covenant with the Creator. and not enter into a death sentence, a contract with the god of the cave.
I'm sitting just below the Cave of Pan on the north slope of the Acropolis. In fact, I'm just underneath the Pinacotheke.
Yep. They
I'm near
worship
one
Pan.
of the fountain houses,
Pan is Satan.
and that's just to my right. The Cave of Pan is straight in front of me.
That's right. Pan is
And
the Greco-Roman
over
god
to my left is
that
the
represents
Clepsydra.
Satan.
So you can now sort of walk around this route on the Acropolis with numerous smaller shrines
And you just saw the
in the
Pope
little caves, and
worshiping Mary in the cave
clearly
early.
carvings in the rock for mounting inscriptions and votives.
Vatican, a third city-state, was officially created in 1982. That city-state is called the District of Columbia and is located on 10 square miles of land in the heart of Washington. The District of Columbia flies its own flag and has its own independent constitution. Although geographically separate, the city-states of London, the Vatican, and the District of Columbia are one interlocking empire called Empire of the City. The flag of Washington's District of Columbia has 3 red stars, one for each city-state in the 3-city empire. This corporate empire of 3 city-states controls the world economically through London's inner city, militarily through the District of Columbia, and spiritually through the Vatican. The Constitution for the District of Columbia operates under a tyrannical Roman law known as Lex Fori, which bears no resemblance to the U.S. Constitution. When Congress passed the Act of 1871, it created a separate corporate government for the District of Columbia. This treasonous act allowed the District of Columbia to operate as a corporation outside the original Constitution of the United States and outside of the best interests of American citizens. Most U.S. citizens believe that the United States is a country and that the President is the most powerful man on earth. The United States is not a country. It is a corporation, and the President is President of the Corporation of the United States. He and his elected officials work for the corporation, not for the American people. Since the United States is a corporation, who owns the corporation of the United States? Like Canada and Australia, whose leaders are prime ministers of the Queen and whose land is called Crown Land, the United States is just another Crown colony. Crown colonies are controlled by the empire of 3 city-states. At the center of each city-state is a towering, phallic-shaped stone monument called an obelisk that points skyward. In D.C. city-state, the obelisk, known as the Washington Monument, was dedicated to Freemason George Washington by the Freemason Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia. The Secretive Brotherhood of Freemasons laid the Washington obelisk's cornerstone in 1848 and contributed 22 Masonic memorial stones. 250 Masonic lodges financed the Washington Monument obelisk, including the Knights Templar Masonic Order. At the heart of London city-state is a 187-ton, 69-foot-tall Egyptian obelisk called Cleopatra's Needle. It was transported from Egypt and erected on the banks of the River Thames. In Vatican City, another Egyptian obelisk towers high above St. Peter's Square.
Listen, the crown of England and the triple crown of the Vatican cannot usurp or steal the freedom and the liberty given to humanity and Americans from their creator, the King of Salem, the King of righteousness, and his royal priesthood. You are looking at him. So, once again, this is an invitation to be transformed. I know you got deceived. I know you thought Christianity was something that came out of Rome and they were following Christ, but All throughout the word, he warned, beware of the traditions. Everybody's caught up in the traditions and the rituals and the heritage that you got from your fathers and ancestors, and everything coming out of Europe came straight from Greece and Rome. Everything from Greece and Rome was stolen from Egypt. Everything in Egypt was a copy of Babylon. Everything in Babylon is dedicated directly to Satan. So there's no way. I don't care what they call it. I don't care what they wrap it in. I don't care how many times they say Christ's name in it. It has nothing to do with Christ. He told you, many will come in my name. And the way they're getting you is through the secret societies, through Freemasonry. These Jesuit priests, which is the army of the Roman Catholic Church, which now the United States of America just voted into office, Donald Trump, who was trained and raised in Jesuit schools and taught the ways of Jesuits, and you have a Jesuit Pope in the Vatican. Now y'all about to see. The Jesuits created and manufactured Freemasonry and the Illuminati and all secret societies, the Bilderberg Group and all of that, to be the army of the Vatican to destroy Protestant, what they thought was a reformation was really a transformation. So the protest is not over, because it wasn't started by Martin Luther. The protest was started in the kingdom when it says Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels and cast them out. That's when the protest started. That was in Hollywood. That's right. This is the everlasting kingdom. He said, he prayed to the Father and said, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. This is that kingdom. We are that royal. If you want to break out of that prison of sin, you paroled. Fullness of time served. It's time for some R&R. If you want to get clean, come home. Man, it's the Slavery Abolitionist Network, man. Time to get free.